Hello buddy, it's Warden here with a short little video to discuss the upcoming campaign exclusive units for the Warden and the Paunch DLC. Now in this video I'm going to cover the exclusive units for Eltharion as well as the exclusive units for the greenskins. Grom the Paunch in fact does not have exclusive units to him, though there are some Waaagh exclusive greenskin units which we will cover in this video. I will also cover the exclusive units for Imrik because Imrik does have some forces that he can acquire throughout the course of his campaign and then take advantage of. Now, if you don't want any spoilers, if you're hoping to discover these units for yourself and are looking forward to wait till the DLC, there's your final warning. You can shut off the video now. And without further ado, we are going to kick things off with Eltharion the Grim and his Mistwalkers. So, Mistwalkers, I should say. Look at me, incompetent at my job. But if we take a look at the Mistwalkers here, we can get a nice little glance at the 5 different units that you will have access to. First and foremost, these guys are, and I should mention, these guys are all limited in campaign. You cannot have an infinite number of these. This is not just a unit you can recruit. At the same time, you can have, it's kind of like the Tomb King's mechanic. You can have more of them. You can acquire more of them over the course of a campaign through completing certain upgrades of an Alpha Tamara. But they are still a limited unit. It's a little bit like I would say it's a little bit like a mix between Tomb King units and Empire regional troops. But first and foremost, we do have the Athel Tamara Faith Bearers. Now these handsome lads are a high elf sword infantry. As we can see here, they do look pretty darn fancy with their little feather caps and colorful outfits. A lot of gold on there, rather dashing and daring. This unit is basically souped up hell pilgrims, as weird as that may sound, but combat stats wise, they nothing too crazy. You do get silver shields, you do have 80 armor, which is nice, makes them a bit beefy, sort of like the new silver and spears. They do actually have built-in missile resist, which is pretty nuts, which keep in mind, that stacks with a shield. You got 55% shield. On top of that, you do get missile resist, so they will be very survivable against missile play. Their combat stats are not amazing, but they do get both frenzy as well as martial prowess. So keep in mind, this in a real game will be significantly souped up. And these guys are, and you do actually get some of these guys early on in the campaign. So in my opinion, this unit will definitely be a bit nifty. It could help you, especially if you don't invest in, say, White Lions. It could be useful for early game siege work. They could give you a decent advantage as a holding unit, and otherwise they can still kind of dominate the front line for you if you get them early game, because oftentimes you'll fight tier 1, tier 2 units which will not be up to snuff with this sort of force here, because with martial prowess active you're looking at 42 melee defense, 30, and actually it's going to be about 44 melee attack with frenzy, and then on top of that you get more charge bonus, you get more weapon strength, so they're going to be hitting pretty hard. Their AP component is actually pretty high at 12. So they're not pushovers against armor either. And I could just see these guys being a very versatile and useful unit early game, even though they're not going to be composing the core of your army. And I think by late game, you're probably going to want something better. These guys just, I don't think will hold up compared to Phoenix Guard or Sword Masters going into late game. Next up, we do have the Sentinels of Astaril. Not sure if I'm pronouncing that correctly. These guys are also looking rather fancy. They're basically a roided up Lothern Sea Guard. And once again, you're seeing a lot of gold. Look at these. Look at these lovely chaps here. A lot of feathers, a lot of gold. That is definitely a theme for the unique units in this DLC. But these guys basically souped up Lothern Sea Guard. And Lothern Sea Guard is excellent in campaign. Many people make armies composed entirely of Lothern Sea Guard, maybe with some Sisters of Avalorn. So if that's what floats your goat, the Sentinels of Astaril are probably going to be for you. They're basically Lothern Sea Guard with 55 more range. 215 range is insane. That's higher than any other archer unit in the game. Even outranges Way Watchers and Way Stalkers. Obviously, this is not counting skills or upgrades of that sort. They've got Shield Breaker. They've also got the armor piercing trait. So you throw these into a missile heavy formation, honestly just as a supplementary unit, and they will allow your missiles to delete everything, and really going to be quite a potent force. Their damage output, as you can see, is pretty nuts. They have a very long reload time, so they're not a unit that sort of dumps boatloads of damage very quickly. Nearly 20 seconds rate of fire is on par with a cannon. So they're not a unit that fires super quickly, but they do have very high alpha strike damage, and 22 AP per shot is nothing to sneeze at. Though, keep in mind, that's a little over 50% That's 50. That's just a 55% AP ratio, so it's nothing too insane. They're AP, but only just. But still, I think a very powerful unit, and a unit that can easily stick around into late game for your armies. Next up, we do the Spire Guard of Tor Ivres. These guys are basically, well, Lothern Sea Guard again, but this time the unshielded variant. And I think these guys are, once again, going to be that might not hold out as well into late game. Once again, we are seeing a lot of gold hues, a lot of feathers, very fancy, very crazy. But looking over their stats here, compare them to the Sentinels of Astaril. They do have a beautiful ammo capacity of 45. They do have expert charge defense, which is very nice. They've got unbreakable. They provide encourage, so they can certainly be good providing support in a Lothern Sea Guard line. With 80 armor, it kind of offsets the lack of shields. They do still have 180 range, which is more than Lothern Sea Guard, and they do get 8 AP damage. So their AP component is actually pretty high for a non-AP unit. And with 45 ammo, they can certainly dish out a lot of hurt. But you do have to keep in mind that they will be very susceptible to enemy missile pressure, since they don't have shields. They're not the greatest melee combat unit. 28 and 32, it's decent. I do believe that's the same as Lothern Sea Guard without the unshielded variant. They can certainly hold their own against some lower-end cav, or even probably mid-tier cav, but certainly not a unit you're going to expect to weather a storm of projectile fire or weather some elite tier monstrosities. But they can certainly provide some hefty support to your firing line and certainly make you a much more potent force on the battlefield. And expert charge defense, definitely nifty. It can mean that if you put these guys at the front line to help support your Lothern Sea Guard there, they can tank much better. Finally, we do have the Skyhawks. This is the last infantry unit with the DLC. These are last campaign-exclusive infantry unit with the DLC here for the High Elves. And these guys are basically fancy-looking High Elf archers. They basically look a lot like, well, High Elf archers with light armor. But even more gold and feathers. So, going over their stats here, these guys do, in fact, have stalk. They do have firewall moving, though, as you can see here, unlike normal archers, they do have 360 fire, so you can actually get some real benefit out of that. Though I'm not sure you're going to be doing like Shadow Warrior builds or anything. I'm not sure how much benefit of this will be in a practical campaign with Eltharion, since you're probably not doing Shadow Warrior plays. But you do get that gorgeous bonus for infantry of 7. Very low AP damage, so certainly don't expect to be dishing out the hurt to any... Certainly don't be expecting to be dishing out the hurt to any heavily armored troops. You also don't have the greatest ammo capacity here. They do, however, have penetrating projectiles. So that is something worth keeping in mind. These guys are really designed to cleave through masses of cheap trash. If you're dealing with skeletons, Skaven slaves, clan rats, plague monks even, some of the lighter armored Dark Elf infantry, lighter armored Goblin infantry, of course, these guys will probably excel with their bonus versus infantry, with their piercing shots, despite that low ammo capacity. And then in close quarters, they are still a potent force. They do still get martial prowess. They do still have bonus versus infantry, which is stacking on 43 weapon strength and 42 melee attack. So these guys are going to be shaft cleaners extraordinaire. Once again, I'm not sure you're going to continue utilizing these into late game. They do get that nifty 80 armor. They're certainly a potent force. But I do think that something like Sisters of Avalorn, for example, and keep in mind, they only have 100 range. So they're not like a super ranged unit. So using them as support for a very long range high elf firing line, I think will be a bit difficult. I think by late game standards, you're probably once again going to be shifting more towards Sisters of Avalorn, more towards Lothern Sea Guard frontline if you decide to stick with a super missile heavy play. Though it could certainly remain a useful sort of support tool that it can clean up trash quickly. Finally, the unit that no doubt many of you are most excited to see here, the Knights of Tor Gaval. Just look at these majestic beasts. It is basically a 3-in-1 Lord pack right here. These guys just look absolutely dapper. I do believe the Griffins are unique to them. They are very similar to, or kind of similar to the Amber Wizard one, but it's not quite the same, I believe. A little bit of a different color scheme. Looks very gorgeous here with the greens and the sort of tan hues in the back here. Just looks very, very gorgeous. As I said, they are basically a 3 heroes in one. Not quite, but close to it. 11,000. Not 1,100, 11,000 HP, 80 armor. They've got decent speed at 90, a melee attack of 50, 32 defense. 300 weapon strength. Of course, they cause fear and terror. They do have encourage, and they do have a baked-in missile resist of 25%. These guys are basically roided-up Hippogriff Knights, or 3 lords in 1, whatever you may consider them. Absolute beasts on the battlefield. They can dish out a lot of hurt. They can. I think they're going to be useful right up into late game. Obviously, you don't get the breath attacks that you would with a dragon, but you are way beefier than any dragon in the game. You have almost twice the survivability of a star dragon, much less any lesser dragon. You have way more damage output than any dragon because you've got 900. Keep in mind, this is 3 models, so you've got 900 weapon strength going into each attack cycle, essentially, which is just nuts. It allows you to get some surrounds. You got decent mobility. In my opinion, these guys are going to be a lot of fun. They're going to be very powerful. Obviously, you're probably not going to get a lot of them, but I could see them being incredibly useful right into late game. And that is it for the... And I should mention that these guys don't get martial prowess. You guys can probably see that yourselves, but I should highlight that, I think. We'll start a battle here just so you can see their stats with martial prowess active. Obviously, those guys don't change, but Skyhawks going up to 44, 34. Pretty good there. Spire Guard Artillery Vest, 30, 44. Definitely nice. Sentinels of Astril spiking to 52 melee defense, which is just incredibly beefy. And, of course, the Athel Tamara Faith Bearers up to 42 melee defense. So, all in all, you can see martial prowess beefs these guys up a lot. There's certainly not going to be any pushovers in close quarters. Just a storm of missile fire is what you can expect from these guys, and really going to be, I think, a potent sight on the battlefield. And I think they're going to have a lot of utility, especially in the early stages of the campaign, and some of these guys I think will scale rather well into late game. But that was the little sneak peek of Eltharion's forces, and without further ado, we are going to skip on over to Imrik. So, Imrik. He is, as you can see, a Dragon Prince. And one of his campaign mechanics revolves around, well, his unique campaign mechanic revolves around either interacting or capturing various sort of legendary dragons and adding them to his retinue, adding them to his army. And so, sort of like a Pokemaster here, he's caught them all. And it's quite a variety of dragons, all of them akin to some sort of dragon we already have in game, though all of them do have souped up stats in comparison to their ordinary kin. So going down the length of the line here, we do have Gordonar, Champion of Flame, first and foremost. As you can see, he doesn't look very different from a Sun Dragon. In fact, I believe these models are the same as their vanilla variants. But looking at Gordonar here, he does have his own Dragon Breath here. I don't know if the damage output on this is actually different compared to a normal normal Sun Dragon's Breath. I would assume it's more powerful, though I'm certainly not sure of it. He does, however, have the Phoenix mechanic of Rebirth. He has a chance of restoring his HP, and as you can see, one of the nice little things coming with this patch is that you can now see how much HP it restores. It restores 2,500 HP almost, potentially, on a 50-50 dice roll. Otherwise, he dies instantly, which sucks. But he's kind of like a Phoenix. He's got the baked-in fire resist. He does have his own breath attack. He does have Vanguard deployment, so you can actually throw this guy all the way up in your opponent's face, which is kind of nice. But basically a roided up Sun Dragon. Certainly not the best dragon you're ever going to get. I think in campaign you might honestly not want this guy compared to, say, a Sun Dragon. Because ultimately you're probably going to be spamming heals anyway. But still, definitely a cool little dragon you can pick up. Next up, looking very much like a forest dragon, we do have Bruor, the Protector of Life. And this guy is, well, he's a forest dragon, as you can kind of see. He's got the same 20% physical resist, 25% missile resist. He's a forest spirit. He does have the Noxious Breath. And in fact, it is literally the same soporific breath that you get with a normal forest dragon. He doesn't even get a unique breath. His only real defining feature is that he gets a 10 bonus versus infantry, so that'll make him a little better there. And he does get 70 armor rather than the 50 of his conventional Wood Elf cousin. Certainly, once again, not the craziest combatant. I could see him being useful for the poison. It could give you some utility and support because High Elves don't have much access to poison. And so I could see Bruor being good for that in a dragon pack. But I think, once again, it's something you're probably going to pass on once you've moved on to Star Dragons and better things. Next up, appearing much like a Moon Dragon, we do have Lamuro, the Frozen Breath. Now, this guy is a bit of a shift. He is designed more along the lines of a Frostworm with much of his stats. He does have, once again, somewhat improved armor. And that's worth mentioning that all these dragons do have improved armor compared to their base variants. But Lamuro does have 15 more armor. than the vanilla Moondragon. He does get Frostbite. He also does get the Chilling Aura. So it's basically, really, what it is it's a roided up Frostworm with the skin of a Moondragon, which I think is cool. Having a snare is nifty. The stats are very good. So actually, the stats are almost on par with like a Star Dragon. So I could see that combined with the utility, you might want to keep one of these guys in your army going into the long term. I guess he does have Encourage as well, though I don't think that's too important. But I could see him being useful into late campaign as a support tool for the rest of your Dragon mob too, because sometimes AI does like to run away with its lords or run away with its monsters, and this guy can deny that. Next up, we do have Shakalot the Calamity. He's literally just a black dragon, and there's actually nothing, as far as I know, that's unique about him. He does get the Shakalot's Noxious Breath, which reduces enemy leadership, so he's got a unique breath attack there. Once again, much like Gordon, who gets his own unique breath attack. But besides that, his stats are just souped up black dragon stats. He does get 90 armor rather than 80. But same missile resist, a somewhat better weapon strength at 580, but it's certainly not sort of a crazy improvement over a black dragon. And compared to a Star Dragon, I'm not entirely sure you'll really want this guy unless you're going for some leadership breaks. Once again, I think Star Dragon might just be better. Finally, we do have Imreth the Eternal, and this guy is a roided up Star Dragon. Who does have the benefit of this ability here, Primal Rage. Now this guy is an absolute beast, and I think you will probably be keeping this guy. 100 armor, he's got 80 speed, very, very good combat stats. Much better than a Star Dragon's. Stacked on top of bonus versus large, so he hits like an absolute truck. I would not be surprised if this guy was the best anti-large duelist in the game in base state. He also gets the benefit of Primal Rage, which stacks over the course of 135 seconds. You ultimately end up with 25% more damage, which, when you're starting at 690, that's a lot of damage. That is almost 200. That is about 175 or so extra damage. Not feeling doing the head maths right now. It's not quite 175, but it's close to it. I believe it's 172.5, maybe. I don't know. But definitely this guy's going to be beast. Unbreakable doesn't really matter, honestly, because this guy's probably not going to be breaking. But yeah, crazy damage output. Going to be hitting for close to 900 damage when roided up. Yeah, don't mess with him. Looks very cool. So there you go. The Lord of the Dragons coming in with a variety of dragons. In my opinion, they aren't super unique. It's more going to be about the battles to acquire them and more about the mechanic of trying to meet them than actually acquiring the dragons. Because most of these guys are not that good compared to, say, a Star Dragon. But I still do think it's cool to have this little Pokemon mechanic or whatever going in for good old Imric. And without further ado, we are going to move on to Grom the Paunch, or really the new greenskin Waaagh units. So for greenskins, many of you have no doubt already seen some of these new units. They've already been highlighted by other YouTubers, but we are going to go through them regardless. The greenskin Waahs, the greenskins can now get new unique Waaagh regiments of renown or unique units, and these are it. Some of these units are kind of silly. Some of them are definitely a bit memey. Some of them could actually fill in for some significant downsides greenskins have otherwise. And so we'll kind of be going through and looking at each of them in turn. First and foremost, we do have Armored Squig Hoppers. These guys are amazing, if only for their looks. They look incredibly dapper. I do believe it's a mix of the Night Goblin War Boss's mount with some Night Goblins and who have like some armor slapped onto them. So they look really cool. The unit itself is basically Squig Hoppers with a little more armor. Base Squig Hoppers, off the top of my head, have 35 armor, or sorry, 25 armor. These guys go up to 55. It's not the hugest buff. These are not Empire Knights or Reiksguard. Let's be honest here. They're not even up to par with Boar Boys, but you can upgrade them with Scrap in campaign, I believe, and you do get the and you do get a nice chunk of armor still. 55 instead of 25 will make you much more resilient to something like cheap spears, or if you happen to get caught in those. But this is certainly not a unit I think that you're going to be relying on into late game. Maybe if you're messing around with like a Skarsnik Squig Hopper build, this is not something you're going to care about too much. But still, cute little unit. Does get that bonus versus infantry of 10. still does get that immune psychology and Vanguard deployment as its normal Swig Hopper brethren, and the speed is actually, I believe, a little bit slower. I think it's normal Swig Hoppers are 80. I think Swig Hoppers are 82, so it's actually the same speed as well. So just a little more armor, nothing fancy, but they look darn dapper. That's all you need. Alongside them, we do have the Lava Spider Rider Archers. These guys are actually, I think, pretty strong. They got AP damage. Now, it's not the full Mogra Mangy Marauder 10 AP, 1 non-AP damage. It is 6 AP versus 5 non-AP. But, you know, that's compared to usual Goblin Wolf Riders or Spider Riders. That's a massive improvement. Because they're kind of trashing that. And you do also get AP in melee. Even though, once again, it's barely over that 50% threshold to qualify as AP. They do still get Vanguard. They get fire resistance. Of course, Strider, Firewall's moving, all that stuff. They still get poison. So they're basically normal Spider Riders, except they do have AP damage. And I think that's pretty nifty. Obviously, Greenskins usually don't revolve around skirmishing, especially with the changes to Waaagh that only really charges if you're in melee. But I could definitely see these guys being nifty. Good support tool. And I definitely keep these guys over any other Greenskin Archers. Except like Bogers, Mage Marauders maybe, but only have one of them. I definitely think they're nifty. It is worth mentioning, one of the scrap upgrades for Goblin Archers nowadays does provide extra AP damage for them, so maybe they won't do as well compared to that, but I think you'll want your scrap for your better units, so I can still see the Lava Spider Riders having a niche there. Next up, the Super Squig, basically a bloated corpse, but Squig form. Not much to be said there. As you can see here, Squig go boom, detonates in close quarters. Otherwise, it is literally just a Squig. Exact same stats as normal Squig. I think the AP, the HP might even be lower, which is kind of pathetic. The unit, honestly, even against AI, I'm not sure this unit will be very good at all. It's going to be a total meme because honestly, with 118 HP, any missile play will kill you way before you get anywhere. So that's way worse than a bloated corpse. So this will take a lot of caution to make work if you want to make it work. But you know, it's a funny little meme unit, so it's got that going for it. But honestly, it's not even as cool looking as the Armored Squig Hoppers, so you know, this one's a letdown. He's not really a Super Squig, it's a ripoff. But in all seriousness, moving on to the Feral Wyvern here. So this is a bit of a unique feature now, because the Greenskins, of course, have no Air Force. Traditionally, the only unit that gets flying mount is Azag, as well as the War Boss. So now you can actually create a bit of a Greenskin Air Force. Now that Air Force does Rampage. That Air Force does not necessarily have the best combat stats. 44 melee attack is not terrible, but 28 melee defense is pretty abysmal, even though you do get poison. Weapon strength is a solid 450, but only 60 armor, 4,000 HP. It's definitely not the biggest beefcake of them all. It's definitely weaker than any dragon, and you don't get a breath attack. But if you do want to go for some air plays, a Feral Wyvern could be the feature for you, and it's definitely a bit of a cool unit. Nice to see this fine fella on the battlefield. After all, what more majestic beast is there in the entirety of the Warhammer universe? I certainly can't think of any, and I'm sure you can't either. Next up, we do have the Feral Hydra, literally the Dark Elf Hydra, except it's feral, so it rampages. There's nothing else for me to add here. Cool. You get a Hydra. I think an Arachnarok's better, so I wouldn't be trying to keep this over an Arachnarok, but I think it's a cool unit. Gonna be a lot of fun. Getting some breath attacks is always great. Walking up on the side of a line and annihilating it with breath is really fun. So that'll be cool for sure. And you know, it's fun. It's fun to have some extra units like that. Finally, the Lava Arachnarok, which is a Mortis engine unit essentially. It's got the same stats as the normal Arachnarok Spider. Nothing fancy there. AP bonus versus large. Blah blah blah. It does fire damage. Who would have guessed? But the key difference here is, I guess it does have AP on the missiles, so, you know, if you're looking for that kite play with an Arachnarok Spider, there you go. This is the unit for you. But in all seriousness, you get Thermal Thorax, which is literally just a Mortis Engine effect, so that is very powerful. And then you do get the Arachnaruption, which is an AoE bombardment that you can trigger. If I pop it here, you can watch it go off. A little volley of sort of fireballs that explodes around it. It's not exactly something too crazy. It doesn't do the most insane amounts of damage, but you do get 3 charges of it. It is definitely not bad. and it's strapped to an Ragnarok with a Mortis Engine effect, which is in and of itself pretty darn insane. And that alone, honestly, the Mortis Engine effect alone makes this unit incredibly powerful. So I definitely think Lava Ragnarok is going to be a lot of fun. But that is it for the greenskins. Some cute new units. Obviously, nothing sort of hugely new. No massive model overhauls or anything along those lines. But some new stuff to play around with and enjoy in the game. Definitely looking forward to using some of these units on the battlefield, especially some of the frail monsters. Definitely looking forward to playing around with the Mistwalker units, and even the dragons for Imrik look like a lot of fun, just to try to collect them and have a full dragon force at your disposal. But that is it for this video. I will be doing further videos covering some of the other units, as well as some of the changes being implemented for the other factions in the coming days, as well as some campaign and multiplayer footage, hopefully. So hopefully you guys do enjoy those. Hopefully you guys did enjoy this one. If you do have any thoughts, opinions, comments, critiques, anything along those lines, be sure to post them down in the comment section below. I will respond as soon as I can. Do thank you all for watching, and I will see you all in the next one. Bye for now.